Good.
Olivia gave us a little bit of a preview there. What was that, last month or the month before?
Yes, I gave you guys a little bit of a preview of our
Yeah.
grant program, so I know budget time is a little, like to get everybody in and out, so I was trying to get in a month early to kind of give you guys a little bit of a heads up of kind of what grants we had running through the county and everything like that. But for our 2025 budget, we kept relatively everything the same. The only big increase I think we saw was, of course, the salaries. And also, we did bump up our education line just a little bit, just because with the educational events that we are hosting, we have noticed that it has gotten a little bit more expensive to host these events. We are paying primarily for the school's transportation costs now, so that we can have these schools come to our events. So we try to make sure that every student has the same opportunity to come to our educational events. So it is costing us a little bit more money to get these schools' bus transportation fees covered. Other than that, we kept everything else relatively the same. Usually, where most of our budget is for salaries, we do kind of have a little bit of a smaller budget, just because we do have so many grants that run through the county, and those grants do offer reimbursements for us. So that can cover, like Michelle Gilbert, she's our new resource conservation specialist. Some of that grant does cover a portion of her salary. So as of 12/28 of last year, we reimbursed the county $21,009.64. So right now at 2024, we are sitting at about $7,100 that we've reimbursed the county so far. That's just because we only have one grant running through the county, so it kind of cut it a little bit, and that grant went really fast. So we've actually exhausted all the funding for that a lot sooner than what we were expecting, but that looks good on us as a county, because that means the money was needed in the county. So it kind of gives us a little bit of a leverage. So when we apply for more grants, it shows that we have a need for grant money in Clinton County.
Right. I should know this, and I can dig in. I've got the file, but was the district coordinator position in the salary survey?
Yes.
So is that a salary survey number?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is. It's the midpoint.
Okay. I wasn't sure how that worked.
Both they both that position and this one.
Okay.
Were in the salary. They're both at the midpoint.
Okay. Thank you. And Olivia did a good job the last time of talking about, we really do leverage this county investment into a lot of other dollars that come back into the county from out of the county via this investment. So, including a lot to my part of the county. So
Yeah.
we're very appreciative of your programming.
Olivia, do you do the budget, or does your board do the budget? Can you talk about your board members?
Yes. So we sit down, as me and Michelle will sit down, and we'll kind of see what areas that we need prioritized. So it was education for 2025, just because we saw that we were spending a lot of money in education last year. So that's one that we kind of bumped up. But we do have a board of 5 members, and they overlook this as well. So we get their opinion on it as well before we send it off to the auditor's office.
Okay, great.
Is Clint still involved?
Are you still?
I'm not sure if he's
Only
still
one
in there,
question
but
I
he's
have
not
is
off.
postage. Are you still using a lot of postage?
Yes, so we are actually using a little bit less postage than we have in the past. So we've actually gone to more e-newsletters recently, but we send out postcards.
Right.
So when we do workshops, tree sales, anything like that, we send out a mass mailing of postcards. So that usually covers a majority of our posting. And then we have to send out postings for the grant. That is a grant requirement that we have to do. So what we do is we try to cover at least 50% of that cost with the grant, the other 50% through our county budget.
As I'm reviewing the budgets, I'm seeing it looks like people are using less money in postage because they're doing a lot of electronic communications, but then I know postage is going so high that it's
Yes.
costing a lot more, and I know some things are required to be done by mail, so I was just clarifying that.
Yeah, and a lot of our financials and stuff are all still checks by the mail, so we kind of budget for stamps, postcard stamps, and everything like that in there too.
Okay, thank you.
Just a question for my own curiosity, Britt. I'm sorry to interrupt. On this budget, with the exception of the 2 salary positions, everything shows as zeros at the June mark. How do we handle that, or how does that work?
The only reason you're seeing zeros is because for prior years, there's history.
Yeah.
So the system is just generating that for you.
But how do we track that? Does that just come to us annually, or what? Why?
The 2024 actual is all zero at the moment, though? Is that what
Yeah,
you're asking?
that's what I was
right?
asking.
Yeah.
As though we're not tracking that spending as it goes through the year.
Yeah. So it's looking like nothing's been spent out of these things for 2024.
Um,
And I know this is a unique department, so I was just curious how that worked.
if she hasn't spent out of there, then no, it's not showing.
Yes, so I was actually going to bring that up. There is a reason why.
Okay, okay.
Good.
So our
So I
South
asked it the wrong way. I apologize.
No, you're fine. So our South Fork grant, since we have had mass turnover in our office, as everybody knows, we discovered that one of our line items for the South Fork had a lot more money than what we were led to believe. It was a miscalculation years ago, so we have actually been spending all of that money to try to get it down, because in the eyes of IDEM, they like to see $0 on every single line. That means that you needed the money,
Yes.
and that we have an opportunity to get another grant in this county. That happened, unfortunately, with Brown's Wonder. We did not spend all the money. There's still about $40,000 left, and we got denied phase 2 of Brown's Wonder because of that. It showed that we didn't have a need. So we have been trying to spend that South Fork money first to show IDEM that, yes, we need grant money in this county. That's why this year's been a little weird for us for a county budget for 2024. Usually we have a lot of this money already spent. It's just that grant, we kind of got blindsided with
And you were spending that.
additional money that we were trying to get out the door. So for 2025, it will look a lot differently, because we now know if we do get a phase 2 of South Fork, we will know, okay, this is how much we need a budget for 3 years, instead of, we were basically spending a 3-year grant in 4 months. So,
So even though you have had money for the 2024 expenses and you didn't need our budgeted amount,
yes.
you think you will need it in 25?
Yes, in 2025, we will need it, because we are right now, we are kind of on a wait game with IDEM. So we just submitted our grants, was it?
2 grants in the last 30 days.
Yes, 2 grants in the last 30 days.
Okay.
So right now, IDEM is reviewing both of those grants for us, and usually we find out about the 2nd or 3rd week of October. So we're crossing our fingers for that, because it was stiff competition this year, but we got a really good application out, so we're hoping that we can get some more money into the county for the next 3 years.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, that
for
answers the question.
Yeah, I know. It was
Perfectly
kind
logical.
of a weird year, because we would rather see IDEM's money go first
Yeah.
than the county's money, because that,
We like that.
yes, and we also like that we have the opportunity to get more grant money. If we gave IDEM back money, they're gonna be like, oh, well,
Yeah.
they don't need the money. So we want to show them that we do need the money in the county.
Good.
I just had a question about your grants. So the grants don't run through the auditor's office?
No. So those grants run through IDEM. So I kind of like to call it, we are like the middleman of it. So it is EPA money that is funneled down to IDEM. And then every 3 years, we kind of have like that's how long the grants last. It's like phases. So you can go on for 9 years. So you have phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Each one of them is 3 years. It is kind of, it's a wonky system, really. What we do is we promote the program, and then we send paperwork to IDEM for each one of our clients, and then they reimburse us so that we can give producers checks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm glad we asked, so that was good. Okay, any other questions or comments? Other than that, it's fairly a straightforward budget.
Exactly.
I appreciate all the information you've shared over the summer. I think that's been very helpful. So if there are no questions, I'll thank you for coming, and
Yes.
we will, if at any point in the budget discussions, we get to a point where we're looking for something to cut, or we will not cut a budget without you being in the room. So we would call you if we circle back to you in any way.
Awesome. Thank
Okay.
you.
Good grant writing.
We tried hard.
Yeah,
to save
they're not easy, they're not easy.
every opportunity to bring more dollars into this county.
Right.
We're looking
Yeah,
for it.
everybody.
And I
Everybody.
didn't ask about Clinton.
I think Liz is-
Well, he's just the board, so not the employees.
okay.
Yeah, but- Okay, I think we're going to move to the commissioners so that Jordan and, well, I don't know if Bert's going to stay or not, but Jordan needs to get back to work. So commissioners is tab 6. And the commissioners are in a unique position, obviously, as the executive of the county. So Jordan and I have talked, and there's a couple of items I want him to comment on for the council's knowledge and where the commissioners interact with another budget.
Yeah.
So we'll do that.
We'll go through
after-
ours and then kind of do
that,
those
yeah.
at the end. Do you want me to take you through it or highlight some changes?
Well, let's start with the actual commissioner's budget. And,
Okay.
start out with anything that you want to bring to the attention of the council.
So this one of all of our budgets shows the largest year-over-year change. However, there's 149,000 of that money that was allocated in other budgets for '24 that is now getting moved over to our budget. So the grant manager position was in the auditor's budget for '24. It is now listed in the commissioner's budget. And then there is also, and we've had this discussion publicly here a couple times, the annex security positions. There's two of those, and those are in the commissioner's budget as well. Highlighting anything new outside of the changes that have been passed on from a salary perspective, we are asking for a new position to be created, calling it the HR manager. And we went through this whole process over the last, 2 years, and maybe even longer than that, where you guys are now doing salary updates, where we're getting the job descriptions. We're trying to become more organized in our processes internally. And HR has just blossomed to something that is much larger than one person's role or half of a role for one person in the auditor's office. And Britt can speak to it more thoroughly than I can, but they get bombarded with HR stuff all day. And now you're trying to have Cecily work on payroll stuff and then do HR stuff, and then Britt hop in and help with HR. And it's just become too much for a county that has, 300 plus employees and not have our own full-time HR. We're getting to that point where things can start to slip through the cracks, and it's much harder to keep up on the processes we've created and the procedures if we don't have one individual there. And so even the HR stuff does fall on the commissioners, and I'll just be honest, that's not in our expertise. So then we're spending all this additional time reaching out to our consultant, talking to Cecily, and it's this phone tag that's seven phones long before we get any answer.
Right.
When in reality, if we have one person that can handle it, it streamlines everything for us. So I don't know that I can point to specific savings that it'll apply. It'll help Britt's office substantially, but it's in there as a new request. So I will hope you'll take that under consideration. And for you on the board that have had to interact with anything of the HR here recently, you understand how cumbersome it can be, and that it is probably at a point that it's needed for us to have someone full-time, which will then also, we could probably, I don't think we did it in the budget, but we ideally would then rely less on our consultant in the future, because we would have that individual in-house that would be able.
It was reduced somewhat.
Okay,
Yeah.
so those are really the only,
Can I ask
yeah.
I feel silly almost asking this question, but do we need to follow the process to where before we approve this in the budget, that the job description is created and the
Yes,
job
exactly,
description's
yes.
approved by both bodies and all that before we even go to the point of approving it in the budget?
Well, can we get all that if we don't have, should
Well,
we
I
do
don't,
that
I
before
don't, I
we
don't
have the
remember,
fund?
I don't remember what that order of I think there's a
It's-
process for it, but do you remember, Britt? You had that flow chart or cheat sheet.
Well, the first step is it comes to the commissioners, which is kind of where
Okay,
it's coming
so
here, and then it
commissioners-
comes to the council to get funded, then it goes
Then we
through the
create.
committee for the job description
And the
at that point, if I remember
Okay,
it.
okay, I just wanted to make sure we were doing that right.
Yeah, I think
I think
so.
this is just
we need at least a blessing to get started with anything
Right.
Yeah.
that goes through.
Yeah.
Because how we do it here will be how we have to do it, or how we should be doing it for everybody.
Correct.
So I just want to
That's
make sure that
right.
we don't unintentionally, cause an issue
Good.
somehow.
Well, you don't need to be spending time and everybody's efforts and money
If we don't
if it's
agree.
not, if it's not approved.
Okay, good
So
point, good
if
point.
you don't look at it that, or if you look at it that way. So, and right now I can tell you, I'm in full support of
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Knowing
No,
what,
absolutely.
what I go through on a daily basis with things and it's
Amen.
So
tough.
without, so I believe this, would council approval of this budget with this item in there constitute council approval of the position? I would say yes, without a
Yes.
specific vote on it. I mean,
Yes.
but, okay,
Yes.
all right, I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure I was thinking this through straight.
Sometimes we all do, yes.
I'm just flipping through. I think those are all the major items in there outside of just the stuff that kind of is annual that stays in
I
there.
got another question,
Yes.
Jordan. I see on the utilities, courthouse utilities, is that, I think we talked about it before, is that also then including the annex building in that?
Yes, yep.
Because they'll obviously drop here quite a bit and then go over there, but I thought you were gonna put them all under the same category.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
That was my
and
question,
it
too.
pays for other utilities too, right, Jerry, throughout the county? Yeah, so really, it probably needs to be changed from courthouse utilities to.
Needs to be listed.
County
This
utilities.
is county.
Yeah.
County property.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, it's not just specific to this
Yeah.
building.
Okay.
We can do that.
I had a couple questions, Jordan. The document mountain, do we pay that? How do we pay that? Is that an annual payment of the, it looks like we've only paid for a quarter of it or something.
That's a great question. I think they submit claims as they do the work, or is it quarterly, or no? I wasn't sure if it's quarterly or as they do the work.
We pay one monthly,
Oh,
and then they might do a little bit more quarterly.
So that's supposed to be
Or
for
as
the
they do it.
annual upkeep.
That's
separate
That's
from
the
the-
annual
That's
contract,
the
right?
annual,
Contract?
that would be a quarterly number if, as of June 30th, we hadn't paid the second quarter yet.
Yeah, that's what
That
I
would,
was thinking.
that would work.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think we're right on track
And
there.
that's just for the contract, okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah, and that's a contracted amount, so.
Yeah,
okay.
I just think we hadn't paid as of June 30. We hadn't paid second quarter yet.
Right.
And then, this may be a similar question, Jordan, the mental health, second to the bottom, that money, is that just paid once a year? Or maybe that's a question for Britt as
It's-
well.
It's more of a bridge, but that's, if you recall, that number is told to us by the state. We
And I
have
know,
no-
I know we
Yeah.
don't have any choice in
Yeah,
it,
but-
it's for our CMHC.
Yep.
But I just didn't know when it was paid.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a directed number to us, we're stuck with it.
My last question again is just, it's from my knowledge. Britt, on the exam of other local, it looks like other local records, is that our audit fees?
It's audit fees that flow through here because we pay for everyone's audits. And then
Okay.
it's taken out of their settlement checks.
Okay. So whatever that is, we're a pass-through and there's an equivalent
Right.
revenue. Okay.
Going back to mental health, maybe, Carol, maybe you know this, but does that number come from like workman's comp, not workman's comp, but I mean, if
How
if
do
the
they
county's.
determine the number?
Yeah, if the county's using this more and more, is that, Work experience kind of thing?
I can't,
Okay.
actually, they just
they just count, go like that?
Yep.
well,
Okay.
they just say.
It's
how
in the
much
number
gonna be.
and
They just say how much it's gonna be.
Statutorily, I believe we're required to
Okay.
abide by it.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's gone up a
We
lot
have to
over
put
the
it in
last
there.
couple of years, but,
Okay.
hopefully it'll be going to a new place next
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
But as far as input, I don't believe there's any, I'm assuming some boards and there's a way to communicate with the state, but as far as I know, it just,
Yeah,
here's the amount.
Yeah,
just the way it is.
It is interesting, Jeff. There has to be a formula somewhere
Something.
behind the scenes.
yeah.
Let's move on then to the courthouse budget.
Okay, so courthouse budget shows roughly about a 6% increase year over year, which again is pretty much all related to the addition of the longevity pay and the increase in salaries. I believe we did reduce, we reduced the courthouse building improvements substantially, because obviously this building will be under construction at some point next year. So we shouldn't have to be spending any repair money there, but we put a little bit in there. And then we also accounted for, if you recall, the elevator repair is in there. That's a new line item. We had signed a contract for that to be part of. We signed the contract now, but they're not gonna do the work until they're working on this building. It didn't make sense to shut down the elevator this year for a substantial amount of time when the building's gonna be closed,
Yeah.
next year, so that's included in there. Those would be the major changes I would highlight.
Okay. Cume Courthouse.
Cume Courthouse actually shows roughly an 8% reduction. It was 219,000 for '24. We have 201,500 in there, and the majority of that is in our repairs and maintenance line item. Just based where we're tracking, we obviously have some larger projects going on, so we haven't had to utilize as much as the repair money. So we reduced that down to, again, make this budget smaller. And it is one, I do want to highlight this because, and I mentioned it earlier in your regular meeting, but I think it's an important point. When Alan and I met for us to kind of have a budget discussion when I first became a commissioner, we talked about certain budgets and trying to keep those budget neutral as much as possible. And so this was another one because it receives funding through a tax rate, if I believe, right?
Yes.
And so now we're at the point where, just for example, if my calculations, projections are right, courthouse will receive $318,000 in revenue for '25. But yeah, we have the budget at 201. So again, we're building that balance for when projects of need come, we have the funds available. And right now, on 6/30, we had $576,000 in the balance for that. So we're continuing to build that up for whatever the need would come up in the future. And so, but it has a reduction for '25.
With all the work that's going on, Jordan, you don't think you're gonna get into that 130, do you? I mean, that's already taken care of, wouldn't it? Or is this gonna be things over and above what's,
Well, what I would say is it's under Cume Courthouse, but that repair is for countywide.
okay,
So
So it could be
our
Park-
off-site
could be Parkview
buildings,
or-
that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
we
I'm
get
just thinking
requests.
courthouse. That's right, yes.
You know, I know, for example, Alan and I had met with Daryl, and it's not a large project, but I believe they need a new HVAC system at EMA. So that expense will come out of this line item.
Yeah,
But just those that are one-off that pop up throughout the year, rather than having to come ask for additional funding and go through that whole process, it allows us to have a little bit of availability for projects, repairs, not
yeah,
projects. So,
yeah, I should know better.
but yes, I hope we turn it back in. That's always the goal.
No, since it's in courthouse, that's all I was thinking about, courthouse.
Yeah, yeah,
That's all I was thinking, yeah,
it's-
that's right.
It's, they don't always align perfectly,
Yeah, that's right,
but it's, just based on the naming.
The last one under the Commissioners tab is IT, and Tim's here, and I'd asked Tim to make sure he was here in case you wanted him to speak to it, but if you feel comfortable diving into IT, have at it.
Well, I'll let Tim, because he pretty much handles all the IT
Yeah.
stuff.
Oh, this is,
And then I'll go through, because we have a little bit, which I already talked about, Cume Cap development. We have a little bit in there, and then landfill as well. So do you want me to talk about the commissioner items?
Yeah, why don't
in
you go ahead and
those?
do that, and then we'll let Tim
Okay,
back clean up and
I'll see if
bring
I
it
can
home.
find them in here. So, yeah, the Cume Cap development, for us, unless there was changes when it went through our office, it basically showed roughly a 2% decrease year over year. It was down to 193,000, and as I mentioned in the regular council meeting, it has a projected revenue of 280,000. So again, just trying to keep the ones that are fixed to tax-related money as budget neutral as possible, as or below, so that they build those balances for us when projects arise or needs arise.
The other one, I guess, for the council, right, the page right before is Seed It, and Seed It has the PIP.
Yeah, so I was going to go
Yeah,
through
but
that one.
Do you want to talk about that one real quick?
Yeah.
Which is down under Partners in Progress 0076 in the Seed It budget. The page right before QCAP there. Tab 8.
Oh,
Tab
tab 8.
8.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the council tab.
Change the tab.
We jumped around here to let Jordan comment on a couple of things.
So historically, for those that, I guess I would point you not to look at the amended amount for 24 because that included the,
Hey, Jordan, hang on a minute. I brought that spreadsheet that Shan sent.
okay.
I feel that way everybody can be looking. I'm sorry the numbers are small, but that's the way he sent it with multiple years. So we have to
Magnifying glass, Joe.
pass those down.
Wow.
I'll run through.
Yeah, this,
I don't have that in front of me, but that's not as relevant to this conversation from my perspective. So if you looked in your budget book, it shows the total amended of 301, which I believe included the elevator
Yeah.
elevator money. So they have a budget in 23, which was similar in 24, of 205,000, let's call it. And what that has been is
seated.
the economic development money that has been paid to PIP/the chamber for their work in bringing industry to Clinton County. As we all know, the annexation happened, and one of our largest economic development areas went from a county area to now a city area at the 65 and 28 corridor. So we've been working with the city to now support the economic development funds because the county was paying 100% of those funds to the chamber and Shan for all of their work they were doing, regardless if it was for the city or the county. And we're real close to getting an official agreement, but we're in the process and have had these conversations and got verbal agreements from the city that they will now fund half of that. So this budget will essentially be reduced, the Partners in Progress line by half.
Well, actually, so more technically, it'll stay in the council budget. The council will be the approving body, and then the
Correct.
city, we're going to withhold from
Seated.
their seated distribution, their half, like we do the bond payment. And we're working through, we're going to have an interlocal agreement, and we'll put all this in writing and everything, but the understanding would be that it's not going to be that we're going to split the budget in half, and both the city council and the county council approve half a budget. We're going to approve the budget, and they're going to fund half of it.
From your perspective, though, now there's $100,000 less that is county allocated money towards this line item that has now been freed up to be utilized.
We will have 100,000 more in revenue. That's how it really
Correct,
works.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
Congratulations on that.
Yeah.
so we've been working through that, and I think Alan and I feel both
Yeah,
confident
yeah.
enough that we're mentioning it today,
And I
even
know-
though it's not signed. But we-
Kudos to the city. They've stepped up.
Yes.
They've not pushed back really. They've been, good
Yeah.
partners. So,
Good partners.
And from a perspective, that is their economic development area now, right? I mean, the county's still involved, but outside of city limits, they have no other economic development area. We do from a county perspective because, there could be opportunities arise somewhere else in the county. So there was really no reason for us to be funding this 100% when they're getting a benefit from it as well. So that was kind of the premise of how this all works. So highlight that one. Which one next would you like to go to?
oh, you may have to go to your list on that. I don't have that list in front of me of the items we wanted you to speak to. The only one that pops onto my mind was there was a request in the sheriff's budget for an extra vehicle for an undercover.
Yeah,
And
so
you've got a vehicle plan, and I wanted to know how that all fit with your vehicle plan.
correct. So right now, there's been 6 vehicles approved, from the commissioners for 25. They've taken the whole year of 24 off, which goes back to when they presented us an original plan in 21, and it was for 3 years of 8 vehicles, which was 24 vehicles. Take a year off and then start back up and start recycling the vehicles. So we've currently approved 4 Tahoes and 2 Traverses. We did not ask or did not get the number of what those would cost. Alan shared with me what they have in the budget. I think that's well above what it would cost for those 6 vehicles. Just going off the top of my head, the Traverses were somewhere in the $40,000 range previously, and the Tahoes are probably somewhere in the $60,000 range to get outfitted. So you can do the math and figure out where it needs to be from there. But then he also mentioned that there was a undercover vehicle in there, and we have not approved that. So as it stands today, there's 6 approved. We have presented him a plan to get rid of roughly 16 or 17 what I would call old vehicles that are over there. Basically anything older than a 2018 or 19 that have a lot of mileage. Trade all of those in, and then we would be supportive of adding 3 additional Tahoes for next year. So that would be 7 Tahoes and 2 Traverses for 25. This would get every merit deputy, as well as detective, as well as sheriff, chief deputy in a Tahoe. It would then also create 4 Tahoes as pool vehicles to be available for the merit deputies if something would happen. And so basically how it would work is the guys that have the highest mileage on the first round of vehicles that they received, they would ideally swap theirs out, put them in the pool vehicles, and they would get new ones, and we'd start our rotation in 25, do something similar in 26, 27. So we're always cycling through those vehicles at roughly 100,000 miles, or give or take.
Is your working assumption, I think it is, that the 16 or 17 that we would trade in would provide the funds for the additional 3? Or
I think so. Whether they would cover it 100%, I don't know. Because some of those vehicles are not going to have much value, if any. But the truck that has been somewhat of a controversial topic over the last year that's sat over there because it was unauthorized and we were unwilling to insure it or put plates on it or title it, will be one of the vehicles being traded in. So it should have a substantial value, which I would think would cover at least one of the Tahoes. And then you would hope maybe the other 16 could possibly cover another one. So you're looking at possibly maybe one more.
just trying to think through what would be the appropriate.
Yeah. But again, that's not been officially agreed to. We've had the discussion. I think we're on the same page, but until it's on the minutes of my meeting, I'm not going to say it's official.
So, fair enough.
So that's the vehicle situation there. I don't know. I think that covers
Extension contract?
extension. So I don't know if I can find it. This one's has a little more depth to it. The county approves
Tab 11.
tab 11. Thanks. Helps me if I can see it. The co-op extension services, we have the extension contractual service, which if you're not aware, annually the commissioners sign a contract with Purdue for these services. In the winter of 23, Alan and I met with Karen as well as some Purdue leadership and expressed some frustration that we were having in the lack of positions being vacant for long periods of time, and why the Clinton County taxpayer was continuing to pay these contractual services the full amount when the positions were being unfilled. And we expressed some ideas of what we wanted to see in a new agreement for 24, and had some back and forth discourse. They, I believe, maybe came to, I don't know if they came to your meeting. They at least came to the commissioner meeting, and we thought we were headed in the right direction. Well, then we received a letter basically saying we hear you, but we're not changing our contract. And so the commissioners did not sign any contract for 24. So there is currently no signed contract with Purdue Extension for 24. We've just refused to do it under the terms that someone else tells us what to do, and we don't have some input. While all that happened, and I take full accountability, a claim was turned in for the amount. I did not catch it, so they did get paid for 24. So I believe, what did the old Baptist preacher usually say? Like, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. Well, it will not happen a second time, because it is on my radar. So for 25, I guess my suggestion, and I'll say this for Bert as well, I don't believe they need an increase, because we, again, have, well, one, prepaid, but also these positions didn't get filled until at least this summer. So we went basically for one, at least a year, if not a year and a few months, and another one we went 6 to 9 months without these positions being filled. And so they are now back at the table. We've had some email discourse over the last week or so, and hopeful that we'll get something done. But I'm just telling you guys that that's an issue we ran into, so we don't believe that that needs to be increased for 25, because services were not and have not been provided for over a year in one position and 6 to 8 months in the other position.
Do you want us to even have it out until such time that you've got a contract signed? And then we additional appropriate it? I mean, to have real leverage.
That would be fine with me. That would be another safe haven to make sure that it didn't get through the claims process.
You just.
There you go.
Because right now you just have their word, they're gonna do something
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. So we will, and they may not want me to say it, they're gonna have change of leadership, coming here real soon. They've already told us that. And so we'll be having talks with the new leadership. The next couple months are a little busy for Alan and I, so, but December, and I'm hopeful that we'll get something done. And what we're asking is nothing too egregious. It's honestly just to, I'll tell you guys what we asked for was to take that money that should have been paid after a certain period of time and put it in its own fund item that could then be utilized for extension for issues that they had come up, whether that was a building repair, a project, whatever, rather than getting paid to Purdue, where it looks like the Clinton County taxpayer is subsidizing Purdue.
Yeah.
So,
Bert, you might pop up here. Can you pop up here then?
Sure. Regretfully, if you'll remember, back in 2018, we had this same issue with
did.
them. We had the same knockdown, drag out. I still remember meeting with their management upstairs, you and I and some others. So this isn't the first time that they've caused this same issue. And we had to play hardball that time. So, it's not the first time.
Right.
so just, that's to be on your radar when you have those. I'm not gonna be able to stay. I would have shared all that when they had their budget hearing,
Sounds like you have it in hand.
but I think you need the background
We
information
got it.
when you have
I
it.
think it's fine, thank you.
I can't remember if that was all that I mentally remember, Jordan, unless you'd written a note of anything else.
So those are the three that I have down.
Okay.
The only other one, I guess, would be in landfill,
It's okay.
because that's kind of a budget that we both
Yeah.
work on.
Yeah.
So we reduced our social services line $10,000, but it was for a very specific reason, and I'm looking for it in here.
Tab 8, that council tab.
Or do I not see it, Jerry?
Eight.
Yeah, it's at the back of the council
I
tab.
thought we created a specific line for it.
Transportation agreement.
Oh, there we go. Yep. Okay, I was looking for Paul Philpott. So, as kind of stated earlier, for Paul Philpott to be functional, it does require the city and county to participate. So we had them as part of the social services line, which gets more requests than we have funding available. And the challenge becomes when you have them included, and it's basically a requirement that we have to do to keep that service going, it then hinders the request from everybody else. So we've now separated that line item to its own transportation agreement, so that it's its own budgeted item, rather than getting lumped into the social services. And the request has gone up, which I believe is their first, so we were around 15,000 is what they had been awarded the last few years. And if the information was told correctly, I believe they had been around that number for the last 20 years. And obviously their costs have gone up, so they've asked for more participation from both the city and the county to continue on getting the most awarded amount from the state. So, because it's all based on that 80-20 match. So if they need more funding from the state, it requires more local funding. So that number has gone, our request is from 15 to 30,000, which is strictly for the transportation.
And that makes sense. I mean, I think we are, as county leadership, committed to that program. So,
And we reduced our HR, yep, there. The HR was reduced by 10,000, which was partly because hopefully we don't have, we're not going to be doing the full-on process of procedures we've been doing over the last 2 years. And then also if we grant the request of hiring a full-time person as that, it won't have as much communication needed directly with the consultant.
the liability insurance and workman's comp, do we have any, is that?
Those are, they just give us a
guess?
percentage
Yeah, the percentage, okay.
of roughly what they believe the increase is going to be. 10%? Is
Okay.
that right, Jerry? 10 or 12? 8 to 10? So we just take where we've kind of been and adjust it based on that percentage and put it in there.
Okay,
And again, remember, those increase throughout the year when we add more vehicles, newer vehicles, more people. Like, all those adjust. They're not a flat number that we get.
Yeah.
We know what it is in January, and we're paying that. It fluctuates throughout the year.
all right. Great.
I don't think that covers all the stuff I had in my notes in the budgets that we have responsibility for.
Thank you
Okay,
for all
not
that.
there. Any questions?
I would just like to say that the county is very lucky to have you and you. I think the two of you
Thank
make
you.
a good team, and you do a lot of extra work. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Jordan.
Yep.
Nice.
All right.
Actually, I'll make one, I should have probably done this during the council meeting, but for you guys, Republic Services is on our agenda for our next meeting,
Okay,
next Tuesday, 17th. Tuesday, which, for those that don't know, Republic is the landfill. We've been working with them for 2 years to get a new contract in place, and it feels like we're at the finish line. So they're on the agenda if anyone wants to attend and be a part
We've
of
got
it.
one more back and forth on language, but hopefully that one's it.
Yeah, so just, I think I should have extended that invite to anyone.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
do you want to take that extension money out? The Purdue?
So my understanding is that today, the extension budget will be presented by the area director. So we're gonna have a little bit higher level person here than just
So
the
I
local.
think we wait to see what we get,
Okay.
but I'm,
So I would kind of like to see what the attitude is and what the comments might be, but it feels like to really give you maximum leverage that you just
Yes.
pull that out and say, we're not saying we're pulling out of the program, and in fact, there's some statutory requirements of
We
things
have
that
to
we have to
say.
fund. We're just saying, look, let's wait until we've gone through the process and we know we have an agreement that we're all comfortable with before we put it back in. So that may require, an additional appropriation the first meeting in January, but
Well, this puts Karen in a weird spot, doesn't it? Well, this.
no, she's
this-
yeah,
changed.
Kat-
Oh, is she a
She's
company
changed
person?
position.
Is she a company thing?
we're not gonna get into personnel. We're not gonna get into personnel.
That was Jeff Chanel with that comment.
Yeah, okay, so now we'll step up with Tim, and if you go back to that Commissioner tab, which I believe was 6, at the back of that tab is the IT budget. We don't have any, I don't think we have anything really big or complicated this year, but I did
No,
want.
actually, for next year, I'm kind of taking it easy because we got the annex.
Right,
So I'm
right.
not really looking for extra projects. The main ACCS line went up a little bit to increase for some extra labor with moving everybody to the annex and with some additional licensing for our archiving. We're kind of getting up to that level of maxing out the mailbox accounts, so just adding an additional there. Other than that, I think for the most part, I left everything about the same, just small increases to cover additional costs.
I saw,
But if you notice in your book, there's the antivirus and the firewall lines are actually
Yes.
shifted
Yeah.
up a row.
That's
Oh,
my bad.
okay.
My bad.
Okay.
That's my fault.
Okay, so this
So
goes
the
down.
firewall should really be
Okay.
36 for next year, and the
Okay.
antivirus really 4,300 for next year.
That's better.
Yeah, I was thinking when you said.
And the microvote should be nothing, so
Good, that's,
Since it's budgeted, I just need to move the lines.
okay. That's much better.
okay, that's 0. Firewall's 36,
The other one's 43.
43. Okay. All right, any questions for Tim? You might address, we had the computer and peripheral line item in landfill, I believe it is.
yeah,
Or maybe
yeah,
it's-
that's
maybe
under
it's Cume
Cume
Courthouse.
Cap.
Like
It's
Cume
under
Courthouse,
Cume
I
Cap,
think.
isn't it? That only went up like 5,000 for next year, so.
And that's as much a placeholder as anything, there's, as needed, it's available.
Yeah, it's basically,
needed.
you know, I usually use about 40 or 50,000 to just buy computer replacements for the year. So that's to kind of keep everybody up to date, not 20-year-old machines. The rest of it is just as needed for things that come up. You know, if we got to buy some additional monitors, printers that aren't covered under Braden, you know, just general things that need to be addressed throughout the year.
Okay,
And computer prices are going up, so that's what the extra 5 was for really is, you know, buying computers this year are $200 more than what they were last year.
okay, great. Okay, thank you, Tim.
You're welcome.
Let's see, that's commission. So if we go back to the original schedule,
Area plan?
area plan would be next.
Good morning.
Number one.
Morning. Number one.
I don't think mine's overly complicated. Most of it, like most years, doesn't change a whole lot. I'll just hit on a few of the high points. Salaries, we just followed the advice given to us in terms of increases. We did add the longevity pay, just your discretion, as you noted. No preference there as a department head, but everything there in that top area just reflects the advice that was given by council. I have a decrease on 304, which is contract services, and that is because Hardy Hills is winding to a close, so we had bumped that line item way up as we were dealing with Hardy Hills and having a lot of consultants' fees and additional stuff, and that's starting to come down. So I decreased it. They're still finishing up. We've still got some stuff to go, so I didn't want to bring it all the way down to pre-numbers. We also have some other projects coming in that may require some stuff, but I did bring it down. And then 2 items, 317 and 318, both have some increases, and that's just projected expenses for vehicles. Printing and publication of legal notices both have increases. That's because we keep ending up moving money into those line items. Just the cost of services seems like it doesn't come down. We're required to publish legal notices for every hearing, and we've stayed busy. And then printing, the primary thing that eats up that line item is we have to produce some fairly large, I'm sure you've seen them, poster board size signs that have to be strong enough to weather Indiana thunderstorms, and they're not cheap to produce. So the vast majority of that number, over 500 a year, goes to producing signs. We do incorporate the cost of those into each hearing's charges to applicants. So your cheapest hearings are $175, and part of that is covering their sign costs, and then there's some other things that go in.
Do you have a printer that you produce those in-house?
No, they are plastic
Okay.
to withstand the weather. We used to be able to do like we don't have a large format printer at all, is the short answer. We have a scanner that I think at this point has failed, but we have to have those done out of house on a special product that doesn't dissolve in 10 days of rain.
Like seed corn kind of things? Like-
Kind of, yeah, it's like a
Plastic,
corrugated
yeah.
plastic almost. Years ago when I was hired, we used to be able to get like a waterproof poster board, for lack of a better word, but then, you know, available vendors and who was printing kind of changed, and we do get it done locally, but that's the product right now that's our best price, and it seems to hold up really well. We've lost fewer signs since we went to that. And we have some slight increases under education and reimbursed towns, and honestly, that's just to reflect, I don't know how many of you do education or conferences, but there have been, since COVID hit, rolling increases in most organizations, as I think the effects of not having revenue and then everything with inflation increasing, and those costs get passed on to the people that take advantage of the training. So I tried to make those modest, and then I want to watch how this next year goes. But just a registration fee now for a conference is up to $900. So just to give you, and we do one conference per year, maybe two, for most of the staff that have certifications that have to keep them. So, you know, when you keep that in mind, you can see that money would go rather quickly. So, reimbursed towns, so that's an agreement we have with each of our participating members, that their permit fees get reimbursed to them each October. And so if we're issuing more permits, we owe them more money. We keep the inspection fees, those remain with us, but the permit fees themselves go. So that's just, again, because we've been borrowing and are anticipating doing that again this year, so trying to get ourselves to where it's covered. I think everything else is the same. Open to questions. Hopefully that made sense. And I guess I should say officially, the Plan Commission, our governing body under state law, they did vote in person on 7/2 of '24 with just a couple amendments we were still finishing, and then got a majority email dissent on those couple items on 7/15 of '24. So the Plan Commission has voted on this budget and asked me to present it.
Can you talk a little bit, you got a 6X increase there on the overtime, which kind of seems to come from out of the blue. I just, what
I
do you
forgot
think?
about that. So I think you would be generally aware of the situation. Our building inspector has always been a salaried employee since the very beginning. Honestly, all of us in Area Plan are, and it works to the advantage of the county because it's better since we've moved to 40-hour work weeks, but it's not. Probably 3 or 4 times a year, we work 60 to 100-hour pay periods, and that just goes back. What the county would pay in overtime if we were all hourly would become ridiculous rather quickly, and so I think that was the decision from the beginning. We all know that when we're hired, the current inspector was hired as salaried. It came out that somewhere in the salary changes, and it wasn't caught by my office, or we would have said something right away because of the budgetary impact. He got changed to hourly. He actually is still not aware of that. I'm waiting on a number from Cecily on how much I owe him to try to figure that out in this year's budget. We probably will be asking for an additional appropriation. But we only have one inspector, so when things are needed after hours at other times, on weekends, like that person does have to do them, we still have to have them available during the day. So I've got to be able to pay him overtime to use them. So I took a stab in the dark, to be honest about this. I took his numbers, what I think Cecily's going to tell me that I have in overtime so far for this year, that I'm going to have to pay him. And then I extrapolated, based on where hours are. And it's a little hard because depending on the year, that can be wildly different. If we get a really hard winter that starts in like October and lasts till like May, and we never come above freezing and we have blowing snow, he's not going to have much overtime during that time because everything except interior construction comes to a halt. But if we have like the last 2 or 3 winters, a milder winter with a lot of freeze-thaw cycles, we really don't slow down much. So I kind of assumed 2 months of slow, January and February. Those are usually hard winter no matter what. And then, you know, a March to December construction season, which most years anymore seems like that's most typical. Looked at what his salary is. Of course, it's time and a half. So then I just did some math and I added 5,000 to cover his position. The 1,000 that's at the base covers our secretary for when we need things. So I don't know if that helps
Yeah,
understand, but
you refreshed my
it's,
memory as soon as you started.
to be honest with you, I don't like it. I think it creates some other challenges, but it seems to be the way it needs to go. And so we're trying to adjust, and I'm trying to not. I'm hoping I don't have to come in before you next year multiple times trying to keep up with that.
Well, this is another one of those where we're playing by the rules of the game.
Yeah.
And WIS has told us in no uncertain terms, this is how it is. And this is Fair Labor Standards Act stuff. And we don't have any wiggle room here. So that's
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yep, and
Yeah.
so no, I apologize for that increase, but I don't know what other choice I have
You're
unless I
right, you're
cut
right.
services to the public, and we try really hard to let our controversy in our office be the nature of hearings, not because we're not showing up or not serving people when they call us.
Right. I do think you could cut your fuel budget back. You know, you've had a substantial decrease going from the year that you were outside of the contract, the county fuel contract, and we've got you in for 2024, and you can see how much that's gone down now that you're on the county's bid. That bid has been renewed for next year at a flat rate, essentially. So I don't think there's any need for an increase.
We'll have a third truck, so this is something that we've been working out, just the way the area plan has, under state law, we can own all of our own property, but the way that it's worked for cost savings is that our trucks are in the commissioner's name. There hasn't been any choice from council or commissioners or area plan to shift them into our ownership. State law says when an area plan's created, all the participating jurisdictions convey all property to area plan, but sometimes other things work better. So, right, in this case, there's substantial insurance savings in keeping everything together. There may well be cost savings on purchase. It's been that way. It's not a problem. But as some things have been shifting with policies with the commissioners, they've expressed some concern to me about not wanting a take-home vehicle to also be a crew vehicle, because what we've always done is the building inspector drives the most, and then the rest of us drive some. I'm probably your second most, your zoning administrator's in there. So typically, we try historically to coordinate our schedules so that sometimes we have to wait, or sometimes we do just pay some extra time for 2 employees to ride in a truck and do 2 different sets of jobs. But with hiring another position, the request was made, and Jordan's also our Plan Commission president, so he does have some direct, effect on that side too, that we keep the third truck for a year and see, he would like the zoning administrator and the new position to share that as more of a crew type situation, rather than having a split vehicle. And then he feels like if we're not using it that much, then to sell it out at, in the next year. But if we are using it, then to look at replacing it and having those staff have one, that it's not being split and interrupting staff. So to me, that's not something I'm okay with
Okay,
trying
that's
that.
fair, that's fair.
But the Dodge does need new tires. And of course, I planned for fuel for it so that it can actually drive. Because since we thought it was going, we didn't really put a lot into, maintenance this year. So, but that's the reason why I increased it, not so much because of the cost. Of course, we won't use that if it's not
Right,
driving.
right.
It'll come back to you.
Right. Fair enough.
I just wanted to kind of give you a chance to explain on the 2 salaries, the zoning, the secretary and the building inspector. I noticed that you went to the external high instead of the midpoint. I just thought maybe we'll give you an opportunity, because
So we received, when we came to your meeting, the mandatory department head meeting, there was a chart that was given to us. We had 1 employee, our zoning administrator, who had an additional adjustment because of being substantially out of line, and I put in the number that was recommended there. On all the rest, there was a percentage increase that was recommended, so that's what we put in. So our office is a little bit different than maybe some of the others in the county, in that when I came in as director, we did some separate independent salary surveys, we looked at situations, we worked with council, and we made some adjustments over time, so we don't have overall the big out of line, we just sort of are where we are. Now, I will note, our secretarial position, our administrative assistant, is not simply a secretarial position, so you will see that toward the higher end. She actually does have decision-making control. She's primary on permitting as a permit tech. You know, you're gonna find like the county highway, county commissioner, and maybe the surveyor's office are gonna be more similar in terms of having some discretionary responsibility, not just moving a piece of paper from, you know, to point A to point B to fulfill a set of duties. So, that position's salary does reflect the additional duties that go with it. But I didn't add anything to try to go to a high or a mid or a low on every position except the zoning administrator. I followed the chart that was provided, and I'm trying to remember if it was 3% or 2%. There was some percentage that you guys asked us to put in to every position that wasn't out of line with
Well,
the salary
I
survey.
think that it goes back to, and when I was reviewing these yesterday, I did not know about the, your building inspector being hourly instead of, so that's probably the difference there, because with, at the midpoint was 61,264, and you put 64,403. That probably has to do with his overtime.
Well, he's paid 60, man, I'm working from memory. I want to say it's like 62 or 63 now, so it was just a percentage. I think you guys said to add 3%.
That is a 3% raise
So,
there.
I mean, unless I made a
Okay,
mistake, and if I made a
okay.
mistake, I definitely
No,
want to
you
change
know what, I
it.
probably, okay, he was probably already over, okay.
He was
That
over
makes
the
sense.
midpoint, so we
Okay.
just gave him a 3% raise to 64.
Okay.
Although I will note,
Yeah.
just for the sake of, like, I actually, regardless of salary survey, still feel like that number is very hard to work with. It took us 9 months to locate an inspector that we could actually hire at the amount that we had, because our inspector also has supervisory duties. He doesn't just go do one type of inspection. He has to do it all, and he's on call. So it took me 9 months, and even with that, I only had a handful of people to pick from. I had 2 individuals I could have hired in month 1 that I really would have liked, that would have come straight out of Lafayette and already been certified and trained. But I was short a little on what they needed on benefits that I couldn't offer. And then on salary, they were looking at taking $20,000 cuts because they were senior inspectors, because in those jurisdictions, you've got 10 or 12. So I guess I would note that while it might on the salary survey look high, I don't feel that it's unfair. And I think my hiring process, I couldn't pull somebody that was trained. You know, I had to work through and take training expense. And I always know if he gets a good offer at this point from a neighboring jurisdiction, I'm going to lose him. So it's, you know, we have to train to a higher level because we only have one. So he's got to be able to do everything.
You know, I think the committee should ask all department heads and managers that when they receive emails and this type of communication from people, why they can't be hired or why. I think you need to get all those emails and all that information. Just so that you're just collecting that. So when somebody says, you know, you're 10,000 under, you know, and I just think that's just going to help out everybody here instead of just.
Well, I think
that
the market
information,
you're in
yeah.
matters too, right? We've been very much in an employees market. Like there are more people wanting better jobs right now, you know, and then there's stuff that's available. It's just people have their pick of what they wanted. COVID, a lot of people left the workforce. So, you know, I think if we were in a position where we were at an unemployment rate of 10.5%, we could pay the same thing and have completely different results. You know, we're just,
Yeah.
our strength is our weakness, right? We have a really low unemployment
Well,
rate.
I'm just
but-
saying that the council just sits here and everybody comes to us and say, the wages are too low.
This is 3, this is the midpoint.
I mentioned this to
3 and
Alan
3.
yesterday.
This one,
I just thought,
I wasn't sure, but
when the
it's a
sheriff
new
comes,
position.
you're coming and saying, you know, or Tony Somers comes and said the wages are too low.
And not on every position,
No,
like, let's
no,
be
no, I'm
clear,
not
like,
saying
it's,
that. My point
yeah.
is, all those emails, all those communications need to come to the people that are now, have something to do about it.
Yeah, I think the general feeling for department heads is we understand, like, the constraints. There's not a, you know, I told my staff several years ago, and the council was generous enough to give a 10% raise to help people survive, to, like, remember that, because we are not a jurisdiction that, I mean, we don't have the income Lafayette does, or Indianapolis does, or, you know, so I think some of that isn't so much that nobody wants to communicate, it's just there's not a formal way to present it. Sometimes we call whichever member we talk to, you know, when the situation occurs, but when they go, look, there's no openness to that, like, we're not gonna come and, you know, ask for something that we know is not in the ability of the situation to provide. So, you know, I don't know how you sort that. I mean, I probably, if I'd gone to a year and a half, I mean, we were spending way more paying third parties, and we were on a 2-week waiting list just to get a basic inspection done for our citizens. So it would have hit a point where we'd have had to have a conversation, but we found someone, you know, it worked. But maybe if there was a way to submit that feedback in a, you know, that didn't feel like we were complaining, you know, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure I wouldn't be the only one that would be willing to, but I don't want to come across as you haven't treated us with fairness, you know.
Or maybe maybe, you know, what Jeff is saying, that we get copies of it, maybe you just retain copies of those kinds of emails when people have those comments, and then when you come to us, you can share those copies then, instead of
Yeah.
us getting this on an ongoing basis. You maintain it for your backup when you come for a request.
I did, on the benefits issue, I did submit feedback to the handbook committee, because we have to go 10 years to get any additional time, and many times people I can hire as inspectors, I mean, I'll take anybody, but as it tends to work out, most people that make good inspectors can make 6 figures, well into 6 figures or more, with that same skill set if they're not working for government. So they tend to be people that are closer to retirement, which means that if they're already working somewhere and they have substantial benefits, they look and they go, okay, if I move, I have to wait 10 years to get any additional benefits, and I won't make it 10 years, you know, so it becomes whereas every other jurisdiction and a lot of private industries as well have some sort of stair-step system. Like, I know when I worked at Purdue, you'd start in the same place, but then each year you'd get 1 extra. I think the first 2 you didn't, but then you got to a point you ended up in the same place, like no change in where you ended up at the end, but the way it got metered out felt like there was always something to, you know, so people felt like, okay, if I put an X amount of time, I get, you know, so I know that was one of the things with those two that came up, that they were like, man, we've got another probably 8 years to give, but now we're at a point where we don't have kids, we want to see our families, and we're going from 5 weeks of benefits to 2 weeks, and we'll never see more than that. And they, you know, they both said 3 would be fine if within 3 years we could get there, and it's like, well, we just can't do it, you know, it's,
Okay, we're getting
know.
off of budget stuff here, though. I mean, really, we're getting into.
no, and that's fine, you just asked, so I was
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
answer, but, we did send feedback, it just, you know, it has to go into the whole, and decision makers making that may or may not make sense.
Good comment, a good suggestion, I think, on how to implement that. All things that I hope you guys as a committee talk about. I mean, when you guys get together, talk about those kinds of things that you would like to have from department heads. Any questions about this budget as presented? I think we've covered everything that might have been a question mark.
Good for me.
Okay, thank you, Liz.
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
If there's anything else that comes up, you know where to find me, and
Yep.
sorry to be complicated.
Welcome back.
Alan, I would suggest we have Ed and Joe go and then do the lunch
Okay.
break, since they're here
Okay.
already.
Okay, great. If we end up having a little time, we can always do council.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Ed, I think you were in the room first, if I remember right.
Number 7.
Getting old.
Dan,
Looks like maybe your warranty expired or something.
Yeah. Yes. Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Doritos Supreme.
Thank you for letting me come in here and present the budget. The only thing I have really, I mean, the coroner's budget might be one of the lowest budgets in the county, maybe. But the salary, I mean, we were all told to put in there what we were supposed to put in there, so
Yep.
that was put in there. And also autopsies, had raised that up just due to the fact that cost of everything is going up. They've already raised it once. Right now, we pay $17.50. Our pathologist was talking about possibly another increase, so that's why I put that in there. That would give us probably about 28 autopsies, 25 autopsies
Okay.
for the increase, if it's increased. And on the biohazard removal from the morgue and the morgue security monitoring, those were both raised $100 each due to price increases. And I'm not sure if that got added in there or not. I
Yeah.
think the total budget might be like $1,100. Not right.
Biohazardous.
What are you talking about, Ed?
The biohazard from the removal from the morgue
It's,
and the
Because-
morgue
Oh, yes,
security,
600.
600.
600 and 500.
now what about, what'd you say about security though?
That's for the monitoring.
That's under the maintenance agreement.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
security morgue monitoring. So if $1,100 has to come out of autopsies, I'm fine with that. To be able to, that was my mistake. But that's the really only
Yeah,
changes in the
that's,
coroner's
yeah.
budget. And I do have some very, 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 very good news.
Okay.
Since we opened the morgue back in 2021 of August, we have actually cared for right now 127 individuals. It's saved the county right now. It's from facility use fees, cold storage fees, and access fees, about $37,800. And if we have to have an autopsy, that's just saying like if we have back in the day when we had a call and we had to transport to Tippecanoe County to use their facility, that's what we would be charged. We'd be charged about $300 just to store a body to find out it just was going to go to a funeral. But if an autopsy was warranted, then that jumped up to $500. So we have had 70 autopsies since the opening of the morgue, and it's saved $35,000. So altogether, we've saved $72,800 since opening the morgue. And the good thing is, the total amount appropriated for the morgue was $68,000.
Well, we're making money now.
So we're in the black by
We're in
$4,800.
the black.
So
I should have said,
Do it one way. I think Billy Miller.
I should have said, we're getting a return on investment. That's what I should have said.
So
My apologies.
I want to thank you guys so much for, it's Jeff and John, when he was here, they come out and visited, and the whole council for allowing us to get the morgue in place. And it's, proof is in the pudding. So it was a very needed,
Well, I remember when
facility.
you came to one meeting and kind of shook us up with the cost that we were paying Tippecanoe, and it was kind of like,
Yeah.
this could be a moneymaker, I think.
so yeah, we're doing well now.
On your numbers that you had there, Ed, and you mentioned like Lafayette, it was $300 to go there. What about transportation and stuff?
Oh, that doesn't even include
That
that.
didn't include that, so
That did not yeah.
you're up there pretty far at this point.
Yeah, that's just facility use fees, cold storage, and access fee to their morgue.
Yeah.
That's not
so-
including if a detective goes. If it's a county call, the wear and tear on their vehicle, the overtime possibly charged, and all that stuff. Now it's just right down the road. So if they forget a camera or forget their fingerprint kit or something like that, it's, hey, I'll be right back.
Good,
So,
good. So,
and
yeah, that number's even bigger than what,
yeah,
and it's hard to put a number on the
Yeah.
rest of it, but it is
Good point.
there.
so
Good.
yeah.
Well,
So that's-
yeah, you're right, Ed, this is pretty straightforward. It's a great budget. I don't have
Yeah,
anything to,
thank you.
It's pretty easy.
yeah.
It's a state-of-the-art place. You should go and see it.
Yeah, I encourage everyone to
You-
come and
You're
check
gonna
it
be
out.
there one day.
And it's-
You might as well check it out.
And we do a deep cleaning every twice a month on it, so. Yeah, it's a very nice facility. And, it's small, but it gets the job done.
Very good. Yeah,
And thank you all for allowing it to
thanks for
happen.
what you
Yeah,
do.
yeah. Thank you for what you do. That's a good point.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ed.
Appreciate it.
Alan, do you want me to have Jada come down to go after Joe?
Yeah, I wanted you to do
Okay.
that. I think we'll have time.
Okay.
Joe, you're up. Veterans Affairs. tab 25.
Have a good day, Ed.
Joe's like soil and water. His budget is, it brings a lot of money into the county.
I hope to.
For the amount of money we put into this budget, we bring a lot back.
Yeah. And not just money. I do a lot of other things that a lot of people never see, you know. So what kind of questions you guys got today?
Well, it looks like the big adjustment is, and I assume this is as a result of the survey, but the secretarial and part-time jumped up significantly. Is that a move to make I guess my question was, is that strictly part-time, or was that an effort to make that into like a first deputy, since it jumped so much?
For
For the
The secretarial and part-time.
secretarial and part-time.
What that is that's, I work Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. My part-time guy comes in Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. So the office is covered 5 days a week. Now, him and I are both in there on Wednesday. I normally get to do things I can't do when I'm there by myself. Like I go to different functions and different things and make appointments where I can handle them and he can take the phone calls. But those are figures that were given to me off the survey.
Yeah, we may need to look at that.
I wonder if that's a deputy position, really.
I wonder too.
So I might suggest that to the committee as a job description or a position to review.
Sure.
I'm not seeing longevity pay. That is,
Yeah, it's on there,
Is
fourth
that-
line down. Are we on?
No.
Oh, I'm on solid waste. Sorry.
I'm going,
I'm not
I'm
into
I'm
solid
going,
waste.
I
Yeah.
don't see it either.
Part-time
25.
don't get that.
okay, gotcha.
25. Thanks, Mike.
Veterans. Veterans, yeah.
I tried, Joe.
We got it.
I got it.
I'm going,
No.
you see.
So other than that, it's
Not much to talk about.
not much to talk about, yeah. Yeah.
We'll look at that line item.
Well, in ways that's good because I don't overinflate my budget.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't spend unless I have to, and you guys know me doing it many years, and I don't come in with frivolous things.
So would you consider that your part-time person is effectively your first deputy?
Well, he's actually, when I hired him to replace me when I leave.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
That's right, I remember that last year.
And
Right. So that's the first
I guess I
deputy.
just feel like that maybe is the one change I would want to make to your budget, is I think that more accurately reflects the personnel, is that you're the director and then you have a first deputy.
first step, yeah,
And
I'm more than happy to change that. I just, that's what it's
No?
always been under, so I never change anything.
It's gonna be less though.
no?
Otherwise, well, we would probably have to change the,
Yeah, I
Have
mean, it
to
would
add a
require
position.
a review of the job
The pay would
description.
be less.
I think we need to review first.
Yeah,
Okay.
we need to review that one.
Well, let the committee
Okay.
take a look at that one.
I think his job description's just like mine, basically.
Yes, he's doing the same thing that you're doing he's doing it the same thing when the days you're not there.
And his,
But,
just part of it, you know.
All
Well, we
right.
appreciate what you do.
Yeah, thank you, Joe.
Veterans do, their families do.
You guys not even gonna draw blood or anything?
No? No?
do you want us to pick on you?
Yeah. I am gonna give Alan I got an email from, the state. and
Okay.
They're being bombarded with calls over the shutdown that's supposedly gonna happen because of the federal budget. And I only printed 4 of these. Let me give you one and,
We can pass them around.
yeah, and, I don't waste my paper because most people, I give them stuff, they throw it away. Guess I only printed 3. I can give
Mary's got good eyes, you can see that.
Or we can,
You're in my office often enough.
Yeah, I can get one from you.
But they say they're getting inundated with calls about veterans worrying about the government shutdown. So that breaks it down real good. Basically, it's stuff that you could live without. The medical side and all that stuff is gonna be open.
Oh, okay.
So it sounds like as far as your department, it's the, if you needed resources to talk to somebody, you may not have anybody to call,
Suicide.
but it doesn't impact the operation of your department, correct?
No,
Yeah.
it doesn't affect me, because you guys know I'm a county employee,
Yeah,
not
right,
federal.
right.
All right, you guys, I appreciate what you
Okay.
guys do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Have a good
See you, Joe.
day.
All right, let's see. That was veterans.
Number 2.
Okay. Hi, Jada.
Hi.
Yeah, tab number 2. Assessor.
That's ride money.
Oh, thank you.
Our United Way bake sale money.
Oh,
Are we at the podium or you want?
yeah, if you would,
Okay.
because that's how anybody online can hear.
Got it.
Can do. Which one are you starting
So
with?
we are on the regular assessor's budget.
Okay, make sure I'm on the right one here. Okay. I think on the regular county assessor budget, I only had, just a couple things. I mean, mine's pretty simple. Raises, I did realize last year when I had my part-time money in, I didn't put in for an increase last year, not even thinking part-time raise also. So that's where you'll see I added some money on that part-time line item.
Okay.
And then the only other thing was, $100 under our dues and subscriptions every year for the association fees. It's $40 for each of the girls, and then mine is a percentage of my pay.
Okay.
So I based it off of that pay difference. So,
Okay.
Yeah, you're a very salary heavy budget. So,
on that side,
yeah,
yeah,
on that side.
on that side.
Okay, any questions on the assessor regular budget? Okay, we'll flip the page to reassessment.
Okay. Reassessment, I did try to make some changes just to be mindful of the pay increases and that type of thing. So I looked within my own to see were there things that could be decreased. So I did, you'll see the increases, obviously. The first page there is the pay and that. And then I took $2,000 out of the line number 54, the consultant services. It wasn't something that I have to use, hopefully, very often, so I went ahead and moved that. My Exoff support, this was the first year that we have had an increase, so it was the $1,185. Down in my GIS line item is under repairs and maintenance, line number 59, or item number 59. That is something also that I looked at, and we hadn't really used any money, so I took $2,000 out of it and dropped it down to $1,500. And same thing with our PETA BOA hearings. We're able to usually do those once a year, and usually 2 days is more than enough. So with what I have to pay the 3 members, I went ahead and knocked that down also $1,000. I thought just, those were things I knew that maybe at least would help a little bit.
I appreciate that.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
It's, each one doesn't sound like a lot of money, but it's a total of $5,000.
Yeah.
I appreciate that
Yeah.
very much.
Especially when I knew I had like the salary part. So
Yes.
I thought, I know it's not much, but it was something to contribute, especially the part-time that I didn't think of
I love it.
last year, so.
Just to educate me, what do you use the consultant service for? What do they consult on? Who is that?
So consultant service, I used a little bit of money, I believe, last year with our, with my vendor Brian from
Yeah.
TAPCO.
Okay.
When he had to do some work, above and beyond.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's in his scope of contract, and he didn't even want to take it, but And then the other thing we want to keep a little bit of money is, I really hope it never happens, but if we are taken to, so if someone files the appeal, they go to PETA BOA here on our level, say they're denied, then they can go to the state tax, the Indiana Board of Tax Review. Most of the time, that's something that Brian and I can handle on our own. But if it's, say, a factory or a larger corporation, then I'm going to need to pay and have an appraisal done. So that would cover that fee. And then if for some reason we were taken to tax court, then I would need legal representation. So that's kind of why we keep.
Well, I'm glad to
Just,
know that you do that. I've used Brian before, where if we have an economic development prospect coming in and they're starting to negotiate if it's, what a tax abatement would be, well, abatement of what? You know, and so I've called Brian to say, can you give me a ballpark figure on what
Yeah, and if, when it's
an
something
assessed
like
value
that,
would be? Yeah.
and like I said, most of the time he'll never even tell me if he did that, and he will never willingly bill me. He's really, I mean,
He's
really
been very
fantastic
helpful to
with
me
the
in those
county, but-
situations where
Mhm.
we've
Yeah.
where we've needed to make some decisions with incomplete information.
Yeah, so I did lower that, but left a little in there in case for some reason we ever needed him for that or needed an appraisal in that situation that maybe we were taken to the higher up level on an appeal.
Okay.
Hey Jada, on the Xsoft, because I remember when we got that.
Mhm.
Do you think that's saving your office a part-time person or maybe a full-time? There's hours saved, or are you more efficient? I remember when that came in and the cost of that.
Yeah, so Xoff was just switching of the computer system itself. So it's our
Okay.
CAMA system that we use pricing. The vendor that we had previously, there were a lot of issues, and I don't even know that they have many more counties that they're left still in business with.
Okay.
So that's what we moved more
So that's what that
vendor-wise.
was about.
The system is really user-friendly.
Auditor and treasurer use Xoffice.
And now they're,
Okay.
yeah, now,
Very
so we're all linked together.
Everybody's linked together.
Yeah.
Gotcha, okay.
So, and their customer service is
Phenomenal.
beyond measure
Yeah.
compared to our former I mean, it's that part for our office for sure has been a blessing, because I call and she either answers or she is right back with me. If we have ideas of, hey, we want to do something different, they'll write a script into the program.
They
So
will.
it's that's been a
That's
huge.
really good to hear.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, yesterday,
Oh,
I
yeah.
emailed one of them in the morning, and we had a conference call between Xsoft, the assessor, the surveyor, and the auditor, all about the city's annexation, because
Yeah.
it was so complicated for us to implement. They've been wonderful.
They
worked with
jumped
the
right
state,
in and
they've
handled
worked with
a
us.
large portion of that for us.
Yeah.
So,
I just remember sitting and listening to the sales pitch and
Yeah.
everything. It's good to hear years down the road. That,
Yes.
Yeah, they're very good.
yep, and this is our first year out of that old contract that there was a support increase, and I mean, I didn't think that was bad at all. $1,185 a year.
Yeah,
So,
okay, thanks.
yeah.
Good question, though. That's, I remember that too. That
Yes,
was,
yeah.
Okay. I don't have any other questions on reassessment. Reassessment is a little different. It has its own tax rate inside of the county tax rate, so that's a good budget. So,
Yes.
anything else for Jada?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you for coming
Hey.
down.
Thank you.
Can I just follow up on my comment to the committee?
Sure.
Was, because as a council, we've always reacted a couple years later when it comes to pay.
It's freezing in
And it seems to me right now, we are kind of even with everybody. We're where we should be, and it's kind of, all we get is people saying from the podium, blah, 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 blah. I'm not saying they're complaining, I'm just saying somebody needs to hear this, and so we can start being maybe a little proactive instead of 4 years too late.
Liz?
We've lost people.
Yeah, but at the same time, with everything that we have going and where we're going to right now, I'm also getting out of it a little bit. It's not enough, that we're still gonna lose people.
She's the director.
Oh,
So
I'm
where
just-
do you know, we're coming up to times, yes, but we're, you know, I'm gonna,
We got police officers over
we
there
were
that
down at
don't-
the sewer line.
That put their.
We didn't even get to the basement. We're on the stairs going up to the main floor, but the other people are still going up higher than us right now.
Her point was, I wouldn't even know who to send it to. Well, now you know who to send it to.
Yeah.
Now we
That's what I
have
mean.
somebody to
It's
send
not-
this information to. That's it.
That's almost as
Yeah.
much as the prosecutor.
Yeah.
I wanted to share, this is a good time to do it while
Of course,
we've just got a couple of minutes, but Janet was kind enough to put together a spreadsheet for me because I wanted to know what the total differences were of all the salaries year over year when you added all of the,
Because I marked.
and
it
so,
and I marked
hey, Joe?
Yes, ma'am.
Joe, I want you
Yes,
to hear
sir.
this. I want you to hear this. So year over year, so you may want to write this down because I haven't done the math to figure the actual difference. Somebody can do it for me. But so total salaries 2024 in county general. So in county general specifically, 5,454,536.
Say it again.
So, yeah.
5,454,536. In this budget, we're at 6,289,314. Now, keep in mind that some of that would have happened anyway.
Right.
So that's, what, 800,000-ish? And I'll share with you that last year, we had, at the end of the year, we had 900,000 turned back in at the end of the budget year. So I really feel pretty comfortable about where we are.
Okay.
As scared as I was initially when we had that survey.
Yeah.
And I did talk to you about that one question. So we have people that are positions that we're moving to the midpoint, and those who are already over the midpoint, we're giving a 3% raise.
Yeah. He was somebody that was,
Somebody that, let's see, so how would that be? So
their
somebody's-
midpoint salary was within 3%.
Their midpoint salary didn't give them a 3% raise. Should we be giving them a 3% raise? You see what I'm saying?
Oh, I thought you were.
I thought we were.
No, well,
No, she's right. There's
So,
this
there's a little bit of
narrow
gap.
band.
so if I'm not the midpoint, I get the midpoint. If I'm over the midpoint, I get 3%.
Right.
If I am not to the midpoint, I get the midpoint, but it's not even 3%. Should I be getting a 3% raise?
Yes,
Yeah.
and I thought we said I thought we talked about it somewhere, and it was whatever was the greater of the two.
Okay.
See, I don't remember that
I
we
don't
ever
remember
decided
that.
that.
I don't remember
I
that
thought we did.
conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't
okay.
remember that
So
conversation.
do you have those marked as to who
I have
that-
them marked as
So there may be a
Okay.
couple that we
Okay,
need
good.
to get to
Okay.
the 3%.
Yeah, I know we talked about it at
Okay.
one point. I thought we could decide to go to
Yeah,
the
I don't
greater of the
remember that
two.
conversation,
Okay.
because as I saw those happen, I thought,
Yeah.
well, that's not quite fair.
No, I agree with you 100%.
Everybody should get at least a 3%.
I do want to, so it's scheduled to be right after lunch is the extension one. And we probably do need to have a little bit of an idea. Do we want to pull that or do we want to go with the talk about the commissioner's recommendation to hold it flat? I mean, how do we want to,
I say pull like Jordan said, hit the nail on the head, then a claim's not gonna get through if it's not there.
the only thing that, as I've thought about it, maybe I want to be cautious about is that we do have a statutory requirement to
Right.
fund certain things. So we can't go into next year with nothing because we're statutorily required to fund certain things.
Well,
So.
You're gonna additional
Can we
appropriate it
I was,
if you take it out.
the what?
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
You're good, it's gonna be there no matter what.
Right.
But is it overkill as far as making the message, I guess?
Well,
Taking away the increase.
If we don't know what we don't know what the breakdown of the positions are, or if we knew the breakdown of the positions, we could just say, we'd like to reduce this amount by the positions that aren't
Yes.
filled.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's not that simple
I
in
know,
the sense of.
I know.
So that's, you're getting into what we've been having in our discussions and are going back and forth about. And so, without trying to regurgitate all of those
Discussions,
messages,
yeah.
I understand what you're saying, but it's just not that simple.
Why isn't it that simple? What was their
Government.
reasoning for?
Well, so it has to do with, we're not giving money to run it through Purdue payroll. They're still, the county, the administrative assistant, all that is still a county employee. What we were using was that dollar figure number as the basis for how the contract number was arrived at. So it's like a derivative, if that makes sense. we're not directly paying salaries out of that 200 and some thousand, but that was how we arrived at the number.
And so Purdue is paying the salaries.
Purdue's paying the salaries with the exception of the one administrative
Right.
assistant that is the county.
And I think they get paid a little bit by both, maybe, or something.
I can't remember
And
that.
there's a few part-time people.
I used to work at the extension
So what
office.
so we were arguing based on
Yeah.
what you were saying. We're saying,
Yeah.
okay, well, we're paying money for these positions and they haven't been filled for a year, and they're saying, no, you're not paying for those positions. You're paying an amount of money that's a subsidy that's
contract.
equivalent to that, you
It's a
know.
contract,
And
yeah.
it got into
Paying for a ser-
semantics.
Okay, then
and-
you're paying for a service, and we're not getting
And
the
we weren't
service
getting the
because-
service,
service.
exactly.
This is
So
the-
that was
this
our.
is- This is the amount of service we're not getting, so we're
Yes, yeah, that's
deducting
right.
it.
So we put together a proposal that said, if cumulatively amongst those 4 positions that we are supposedly deriving this number from, if cumulatively they get to a point that equals 6 months. So if you had 3 positions open, you'd be accumulating 3 weeks a week, 3 weeks a week, 1 position times 3. When we got to 6 months, that would start triggering refunds or rebates
Okay?
because the services were not being provided. And we thought that they were agreeable to that, and then as Jordan indicated, when they basically sent a letter and said, thank you, no,
Right.
and it really ticked us off, you know, but at that point, the claim had already gotten through, and we lost our leverage to have that, so.
And who's coming today?
So
Angie?
my understanding is that Josh, I can't remember what his last name is,
Yes,
he's the
Budget
area director, I believe, is coming today. So we'll have somebody who has a meaningful
Well, let's see what he has to say.
position to give some feedback on.
So we'll require.
So,
to pay
yeah,
them.
anything is we just didn't want to be subsidizing Purdue University.
Yeah, they've got enough.
They want to claim everything.
Okay, let's break for lunch and reconvene at 1.
We'll start back, the clerk will be first one.
Okay.
We get clerk, EMS,